for Sprint's fiber optics network. And I was brought in as the software engineer. And there was software engineer 2, which is, you start with software engineer 1, then you go to software engineer 2, you have 5 layers of software engineer, and then you move up to what do you call it, technical architect, and then technical architect 1, technical architect 2, blah, blah, blah. So American organization is quite large, so lots of hierarchies. So suffice to say, one thing that I did was to learn a lot. One thing that I lived my life with is the notion of what can I do? That's what I learned in that second phase in my career. It's always ask, what can I do? So I walk into the job. I ask this Anderson guy, what can I do? Obviously, I have my task list of things I need to do. And I try to get done quickly and with quality so that I have time and ask the guy next to me, say, what can I do to help? And when you do that, people reciprocate. And they will coach you and give you opportunities and show you new things to open up your world. So by applying that spirit of what can I do, and another spirit that I applied was that if I put my name to it, it better be very good. If I put my name next to it, it better be the quality level that I can live with. So that's pretty much how I started my second career when it comes to learning, is that what can I do at the same time, making sure that whenever I put my name next to it, if it's my project, I will make sure that this is the best thing I can do for this company, for this project. Because at the end of the day, I'm doing it for Sprint, but I'm also doing it for myself, for my own growth. So that's the second phase of my career. So by applying these two very simple things, by making sure that you stand behind your quality, making sure that you seek out for opportunities to grow, I was able to advance myself quite quickly. I started out, as I mentioned, software engineer 2. And in several years, in 2 years' time, I became the manager of the team. And that would be a 3-job grade jump. And then I was basically given numerous opportunities. So I became a director at Sprint when I was 29. I was the youngest director at Sprint. And that was kind of cool. And I'm a Chinese guy too, so it's not like I'm working for a Yankee, American, organization. And the youngest director and being a guy that didn't quite born with that proper accent and so on, that was okay. So I thought, okay, that formula works okay, So I continued to apply myself. And at that time as a director, I was responsible for the entire infrastructure for the Sprint's fiber optics network. That was really cool because basically I was able to develop a lot of new technologies to help manage this large-scale distributed system. So my very first patent was about object discovery, which in geek talk, that's basic, or in layman talk, which is how do you discover things quickly in a very, very large-scale type environment. So, and that patent was developed from some of the work that I actually do to solve a real problem in our network. And another thing, so I actually use this opportunity to talk about patent. So there are really 2 ways to do patent. One is offensive, the other is defensive. This is what the lawyers would tell you. But in my mind, there's only one way to do patent. You do it because you've solved a real world problem. It's really sad that the patent system has been abused. In the United States, there are so many patents filed each year. In fact, the average filing time of a patent to the time of award is about 5 years. So the patents I received, I have 9, has basically been filed in the first, early part of 2000. Late 90s and early 2000. I have about 20 or some still in the pipeline. So we'll see what happens about those. But the thing is that the patent system is so abused. Why was it abused? So let's examine what happened. So back into the early 2000s, those were the dot-com days, as you might recall. So during the dot-com days, a bunch of lawyers started making money by filing patents on so-called business process, which is special technique of doing X, Y, and Z, order fulfillment, electronic commerce, things like that. So the patent system was quite abused by all these so-called business process patents that really don't add fundamental value to technology innovation, but yet, because of some of the loopholes in the patent law, they were allowed to be admitted. So as a result, a lot of companies just file patents left and right, just to provide this defensive mechanism or offensive mechanism to sue other people. So I think that is something's wrong in that mentality. So from my perspective, the only reason I filed patent is that I solved a problem, and I'm proud about it. Now I submit this patent to make sure that this is legitimate and this is robust. So that's my slight digression about patent. So back to my job at Sprint. So certainly, having launched this nationwide fiber optics network and building the overall infrastructure for it gave me a lot of tremendous insight about how to build things at scale. How many of you here are working in technology industry, IT or telco or so on? Can you raise your hand, please? I see. About 1/3 of you guys. So after I finished that assignment, it's quite exciting. Someone called me from headquarters saying that, well, we wanted to build a wireless network. It's time for Sprint to move from wireline to wireless. And since you know a few things about distributed systems, and wireless network is yet another application of distributed systems, would you like to move to Kansas City? That was Sprint's headquarters, to help us architect the wireless network. I thought, well, that's kind of cool. Because fundamentally, when I was a student at UT, that was in the late 80s, I would call home to talk to my mother, and it cost me $2.50 US dollars to call and talk to my mother. So I fundamentally understand the value of communication. And I do believe that with the advancement of technology, there has to be a way to make that communication cheaper and more efficient and more effective to help improve people's lives. So when I was given an opportunity to launch a wireless network in the United States, I thought, that's kind of cool. I like to do that. So I moved to Kansas City and led the work to create the architecture for, at that time, the high-speed wireless network. We worked very hard, and we launched the network in year 2001. So we launched that using CDMA technology. So once we launched the network, we're doing soft launch and stuff, something that we will go through in a few months' time here in Malaysia. The board member called up and said, let's see a demonstration of this new wireless technology. He said, okay, no problem. So I went to the boardroom, walked in the boardroom. There were like, the board members sitting there, and we had this Toshiba laptop with this PC MCI card, right, which is the data card. We didn't have dongle at that time. USB didn't exist, right? So you plug into a PC MCI card, you plug it in, and we start streaming. I think it's a movie trailer of Star Wars. Now, let me just give you some context. In year 2001, high speed means 80 kilobits per second. So, I don't know about you guys. Streaming Star Trek trailer at 80 kilobits per second is not exactly, at this point, based on your reference point, right, it's not exciting. But at the time, it was like state of the art, right? Well, it goes without saying the picture is quite pixelated, and there were some glitches and so on. And the board member said, so for $2 billion, we got this. This is $2 billion US. And we said, that's state of the art. So that's another lesson I learned at that point, is that wireless network can never compete with the wireline network, purely based on the basis of speed. Which means that the value proposition of wireless has to be different. It cannot be a red ocean whereby, well, I just happen to provide this network without wire. That would not be a valid proposition, because no network technology can be faster than optical, right? Light is the fastest, as we all know. So if there's an optical cable, it always beats RF signals. So that's a turning point. So let's check that off. Now, we address the turning point. So that's the turning point. How's that turning point? Certainly, turning point is not about streaming Star Trek movies or Star Wars. Turning point is about realizing that wireless network has to provide a different value proposition than wireline network. And that value proposition has to be application and experience. How? So that was year 2001. So at that time, we make our pilgrimage to Japan. Because at that time, Japan was still the so-called consumer electronics capital of the world. So we go to Akihabara, summer of 2001, just to see what's new in Japan. And we saw people start putting cameras into phones. So those are first generation camera phones. But how do they work? You literally use the phone to take a picture and save it as a wallpaper. That's pretty much the killer app at that time.